Well, hi there. Today we're going to be talking about particle motion problems. Now, these types of problems are among some of the richest and yet most deceptively simple problems on the AP Calculus AB exam. If you know anything about derivatives and integrals, then you'll have no problem with these types of problems. Okay, let's dig in. And the question reads, for time 0 to 8, a particle moves along the x-axis with velocity according to the equation shown below. The particle is at position x equals -4 when t equals 0. The question wants to know, over what intervals is the particle moving left? Since the problem gives us the velocity equation, we need to recognize that we're given two different pieces of information. One, the speed of the particle at any given time, and two, the direction that it moves in. Now, since we're talking about a particle moving along the x-axis, it only makes sense to define right-hand motion as positive and left-hand motion as negative. To figure out where these positive and negative intervals occur, we're first going to have to figure out where v of t equals 0. So that means that we're going to take our equation and we're going to set it equal to 0. So 0 equals t times sine of t. This is a product, so that means that the whole thing equals 0 when t equals 0 or when sine of t equals 0. So t equals 0, it takes care of itself, right? Sine of t equals 0 is a different matter entirely. Now remember, we're working on an interval here, which means our domain is restricted to 0 to 8. On this interval, sine of t equals 0 when t equals 0, pi, or 2 pi. The problem is really asking us to find out where the velocity is negative. So to figure this out, we're going to do a sine chart, and we're going to use our interval from 0 to 8. We'll call this sines of v just to be clear. And that's a v. Then we'll plot our critical values of pi and 2 pi. At this point, it's just a matter of plugging in easy values in between our intervals. So let's start with t equals pi over 2. We'll have pi over 2 times the sine of pi over 2. Now, sine of pi over 2 is equal to 1, so the overall value is pi over 2, which is a positive, and that's all we care about, right? Next, we'll do t equals 3 pi over 2 for something in between pi and 2 pi. We'll get 3 pi over 2 times the sine of 3 pi over 2. Sine of 3 pi over 2 is equal to -1, so we're going to get an overall value of -3 pi over 2, which is negative. Oh, that's what we're looking for. Last, let's do t equals 5 pi over 2. So we'll have 5 pi over 2 times the sine of 5 pi over 2. Now remember that 5 pi over 2 is a coterminal angle to pi over 2, which means sine is equal to 1, and our overall answer is 5 pi over 2, which is a positive number. So now we can make our conclusion. We will say, therefore, the particle moves left over the interval from open pi to 2 pi, also open. Well, there you have it. To find out when the particle is moving left or right, all you have to do is figure out where the velocity is positive and negative. That should be pretty simple, right? At least in theory. Well, good luck. We'll try something else next time, alright? See you around!